This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
Welcome back. True North, the shocking story behind Yours, Mine, Ours, inspired the movie Yours, Mine, Ours with Lucille Ball. Kate Alt is sitting down with the author Tom North to learn more about the book and his real-life experiences behind it. Good morning, Kate.
Good morning, Ella. I'm on the Maharshi campus here with Tom North, who is the author of True North, The Shocking Truth About Yours, Mine, Ours, which you guys all might remember, the popular movie with Lucille Ball. How are you doing this morning, first of all?
Well, thank you.
Great. And why don't you just tell me a little bit about how your story and the story you tell in this book differs from the story that most people know from the movie?
So the movie was a very heartwarming, funny, entertaining film. And the interesting thing is that the reality of living in the Yours, Mine, and Ours Beardsley family was 180 degrees the other direction. The household was one of domestic violence and child abuse, and what compounded that problem was that all of the children in the family were put in a position of having to support a fantasy, and they were screaming inside and having to put on a happy face to the world, and that was really difficult.
So what was your motivation for sharing this difficult story and writing this book?
So as time went on, I was asked by one of my brothers to help him organize a family therapy session, which if you can imagine the dynamics of trying to take 20 people through the therapy, it was really quite something. And as I shared that story with people throughout the years, they came back to me and said, you know, based on what you shared with me about that family therapy session, I went back and addressed issues in my own life and got closure. Great. It helps people.
So sharing, you see, helps people.
Sharing the story helps people.
Well, we're going to hear a little bit about more of your story and also into your adulthood as well when we come back. So for now, Ella, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.
And welcome back. Let's head on back out to Kate Alt, who's sitting down with Tom North, the author of True North, the shocking story behind Yours, Mine, Ours. Good morning, Kate.
Thanks again, Ella, and we're back here with author Tom North, and we showed you his book earlier here, True North, the shocking story of Yours, Mine, Ours. So Tom, how did your difficult childhood kind of carry into your adulthood? How did that impact your life as you continue to grow up?
As I was growing up, I mentioned a moment ago that it was an environment of domestic violence and child abuse, and children who grow up in that kind of an environment have a problem with self-worth. And as I went on into my adulthood, I had a tremendous difficulty in self-confidence. I had none. Until I was 22 and someone told me about transcendental meditation. So I learned TM, and immediately, and I'm talking about immediately, I began to experience a change in my life. And it just became better and better and better the longer I meditated.
What kind of changes? Were they physical, mental, a little bit of both?
It was all of the above. In fact, one example is that before I began to meditate, I could not give a compliment to anyone. I just simply was too bound up inside. And so I began to meditate, and that evening I gave someone a compliment. I was as shocked as the person who received it. And I found it much easier to give compliments after that. And then people began to say, there's something different about you. What have you done? And I said, well, I began practicing TM. And they said, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Wow.
And that was the difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
So when you go and you meet with people or you're talking with people, do you give them advice? Do you give them advice on TM? Or how do you try and help them overcome any kind of similar situation?
Well, everyone has to make that decision on their own. So I think the most important thing that I can do with people is, if it's appropriate, is simply share my story. And the interesting thing about this story is that everyone has some aspect of it that they can relate to, because we as human beings have far more in common than that which differentiates us. Sure. And so it's a natural.
And for anyone who's interested in hearing more about your story and learning more about your book, you're going to be in town in Fairfield this weekend, correct?
I am, and we're doing a presentation and a book signing at Revelations Bookstore and Cafe on Saturday at 1:30.
Great. So anyone can come out and see you and
and sit in on the presentation if
Great.
they'd like.
Well, we invite everyone to come out and meet Tom and learn a little bit more about your story. 1:30 on Saturday here in Fairfield at Revelation. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, Kate. Thank you for having me on your
Thank
show.
you. And Ella, we'll go ahead and send it back to you.